Tonight, our first speaker is Matt. Help me welcome Matt.
My name's Matt. I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to turn my timer on so I can give Sarah as much time as I can. I'm glad to be here. There's a lot of people here. This is good. I'm going to talk as fast as I can because I think I only have 10 minutes here. It's hard to condense it all. My sobriety day is January 13th of 2016. If you're doing math, that's 4 years next week, if I can make it that long, which hopefully I can. I'm going to try to tell how I was taught, what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. Let's see, I'm from Chicago. Anybody else from Chicago here? There we go, repping. I always like to see that. I'm from Chicago. I grew up right outside of Chicago, so if you're actually from Chicago, you know I'm lying. I'm from Oak Park, but yeah, I get that a lot. It's okay. I grew up pretty normal childhood. Nothing was like really wrong in my family. I just hung out with them for the holidays. We had a really good time. They're great people. What I've learned in this program, I didn't know this when I was growing up, but what I've learned in this program is I have this thing that I've identified with a lot of people here of not feeling like I fit in. And I don't know where that came from. I've gone to therapy since I was like 13. I've spent thousands of dollars on therapy, and I still don't know where that comes from. I've learned to kind of live with that and just accept that that's just how I was when I was growing up. And I like to describe it, and I've learned this here too, is like being in a room full of people like this and feeling like I'm totally alone, right? Like I don't live with you, I live up here in my head. And I'm constantly assessing, what are you thinking about me? What should I be doing in order for you to like me? And it's exhausting. And on one day, sometime in high school, I was hanging out with my older brother and his friends, and we were hanging out in one of his friends' basements, and they gave me a Gatorade, and that Gatorade had vodka in it. It was disgusting. But all of a sudden, that self-consciousness, whatever, that mind, it just turned off, and I found alcohol. I didn't know I found alcohol. I just knew I was drinking alcohol, and it made me feel better. And I like to describe it, I was on the couch, I was there, right? And I was in the basement, we were watching TV, and I'm sitting there, and I'm analyzing, like I'm always analyzing, like what do I do with my hands? Should I put them in my pocket? Should I put them in my hands? Should I cross them? I don't know what to do with my hands. Then I had the Gatorade, right? And before this, I had to pee, and I was like, do I ask this guy? I don't know where the bathroom is. Like, do I just stand up and tell him I have to pee, like, and ask? Like, right? So that's my brain. Then I had the Gatorade, and I'm like, I'm just going to put my hands in my lap. That's what I'm going to do with my hands. I'm not going to think about where to put my hands anymore. And then at some point, I just stood up, and I announced to everybody. I said, I'm going to go pee. And they're like, okay, whatever. And when I said that, that's actually what I said. I said, I'm going to go pee. And they laughed. And that laugh, right, I was like, they like me. They like me when I'm drinking. They're laughing at my jokes, and they're like, go over there. And I'm in the bathroom, and I'm swaying around, and I look at myself in the mirror, and I have this big smile on my face. I'm like, this is fun. I really like this. And so and that's I didn't know it at the time, but that's alcohol was the solution to my problem. I've heard that over and over in this room. My problem was that I lived up here and I didn't live with you, and I wanted so desperately to live with you. And alcohol solved my problem and let me get out of my head and just be a normal human, right? In high school, I drank a little bit, right? That was my first kind of experience. I started smoking weed. Weed was easier to get, right? They don't sell it in a store. My friend sold it. So I went and I smoked weed. And it was, when I think back on those times, like life was bad. Like I got in fights with my parents. I got loaded and went to school. I didn't go to school. I had no life ambitions. Things were not good. So when I was 18, my parents knocked on my door. At this point, I had moved from upstairs where everybody lived into the basement where nobody lived. They knocked on my door one morning after I had been out for a while, and they said, we'd like you to come upstairs. And I said, fuck off. Excuse me. And they said, okay, well, when you're ready, come upstairs. So at some point I came upstairs and they said, we want to send you to treatment. We want you to go take care of this problem. You know, has anybody had that experience? Maybe. My reaction to that was not like, yeah, that's a great idea. My reaction to that was, there's no shot I'm going to do that. So I left. I went on a little walk, and I remember I went to the gym. I would always get loaded, and I would go to the gym. It was like my safe place. I didn't really exercise. I just like sat in the swimming pool in the hot tub, and it's like what I did instead of doing homework. So I was at the pool, and I just had this moment of clarity where I was like, what I'm doing right now is not working anymore, and maybe I should take this offer that they're giving me, and I should go kind of figure my life out. So I went to treatment. It's not really, it's a different kind of treatment experience than what I found here. It was 31 days and like inpatient. You don't leave. You sleep there. A bunch of boys. You know, they take your pencils. So you don't like hurt people or yourself. It was an eye opener. And while I was there, they told me a lot of things. They told me I had an addiction that would never get better. They told me the only solution I would have would be to work these steps. I had to go to meetings. I had to get a sponsor. All the things that, I know now. And when they told it to me, I said, okay, you're right. Like, yeah, I bought in, hook, line, and sinker, right? When I left that place, I went to outpatient. I had a plan, like I was going to live with my parents, I was going to get a sponsor, I was going to do the steps, I was going to be sober. I was going to be 18, I was going to be sober and celebrating 50, 75 years, right? Like I was ready. But what happened is when I went to some AA meetings and I was 18 and I went into meetings and everybody there didn't look like me, right? And I heard their story and they're talking about sleeping under bridges and drinking their vomit and all the gross stuff that as an 18-year-old I was like, that is not me. Like, so then I started thinking like, man, I think we overreacted a little bit here. Like I think this is really just not as big of a deal as everybody's making it seem. And one day I drove to a meeting downtown. I parked my car. I walked up to the building where the meeting was at. I looked at it and I said, this is, I'm not going to go in. And so I got back in my car. I drove around for an hour, so my parents thought I went to the meeting. And a week after that, I drank again. And I distinctly remember that, and I was like, just hold it together. That was my thing. Just hold it together. Don't let my parents, that was the problem, was just my parents and my family, and like we were meshing or not meshing. And if I can just hold this together and drink responsibly, then I'm not alcoholic. And that went great for 8 years. I went great for 8 years. I moved out here to go to college. I got away from my family. I was using, but I was kind of like figuring it out. I graduated college thanks to something called Adderall, and I got through. I was like living my life. But in the back of my mind, I'm always assessing, like, is this a problem? Am I drinking too much? Am I what they told me I was, or am I okay? And one thing I've learned in here is that this is a progressive illness. And when I got out of treatment and I started drinking, I managed it. I did. I drank like on the weekends, and then I drank a few times a month. But by the time that I came back into this program, that's not how it was. I was drinking every day at this point. Alcohol was my main thing. I was drinking on a daily basis. I was showing up to work pretty much every day, significantly hungover. I was working with treatment centers, throwing them off zip lines and doing things like that. And they're getting sober and I'm hungover. And that was terrible. That was a terrible look in the mirror. On 3 different occasions, I went on vacation. I went on a bender. I came home and I said, I need to stop. And I would stop for about a week. And I sincerely wanted to stop in that moment. And the longest I got was a week. And then at some point, I would convince myself that I should, whatever. I'm going to drink again. And that freaked me out. When you honestly want to stop doing it and you do it anyways, that is a terrible feeling. Eventually, that job that I had that I showed up hungover to all the time, they had enough of me, so they let me go. I kept drinking for about 2 weeks after that. And then one night this was like, what happened? And one night I was at my tiny little apartment drinking by myself, and I was lonely, and so naturally I called my mom. And and I just called her to say, what's up, and like, hello. Oh, wow, that was fast. Okay. So I called her to say hello, and it ended with me on my knees saying, crying, being like, I'm not good, Mom. I'm not good. And she always said, if it ever gets bad, the drinking, she knew I was drinking. She said, if it ever gets bad, will you know? And I told her, I was like, I know, and I need help. The next morning, I woke up, and while I was convinced in that moment when I called my mom that I had a problem, the next morning when I woke up, my first thought was, whoa, what did I do last night? Like, I was really stupid. But at that point, luckily, my parents, they were already driving this direction. They were coming to intervene, which I was really grateful for. Because if I left to my own devices, I would have woken up the next morning. I would have tried to shrug it off, and I would have been drinking again that night. They intervened. They got me into this program. I learned when I was in treatment that AA is the long-term solution. And so I skipped the treatment part. I just got into AA. I got sober just going to meetings, talking to people down here, and working my tail off in this program. What it's like now, this is the part where I always pause, right? I know what it was like. I know what happened. And now you ask me, what is it like now? What is life now? And life is up and down. This last year has been a lot of up and down for me. I've had really good moments. I've had really hard moments. I have a lot of material things in my life which I'm grateful for. What I do know that this program has given me, I don't have that mental battle anymore. I talked about when you do something that you genuinely do not want to do, and you do it anyways. That is a terrible feeling, and that was my reality every day that I was drinking at the end. And so today I wake up and I like myself more or less. Some days I get down, and some days whatever, I get frustrated and wish I did things differently. I still make mistakes, but when I look in the mirror today, I'm genuinely happy with the people or with the person that I am and that I've become. And I surround myself with people I like too, right? I had a party the other week. My parents were in town. I had a party, and the people I invited were all my AA people. And I was really proud to show my parents this crew of good, healthy relationships that I have. So I'm out of time. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.